Well, we already have a Dark Man of Steel movie that came out. Now they're doing Batman, Superman. They're gonna fight each other. They hate each other. So they're already doing that kind of nonsense.
I like how you change your voice for that. It's like, you Batman and Superman. They
Yeah,
hate each
yeah.
other.
I'm gonna. Batman is mad at Superman, but Superman says, "No, I'm gonna punch you." Batman wouldn't get beat up by Superman, and then the Superman, he was like, I can fly, but you can't
He's a
fly."
man of steel. He's so strong and it's like he shoots lasers, man. It's so cool.
Batman, he just has a Batmobile. What's he gonna do? He can't fight Superman. Oh my God.
You're Superman. He also like kryptonite.
Batman.
I don't know what that voice is. No idea.
It's a man slowly turning into a child. I don't know, but I like.
Yeah, we're moonlighting tonight. This is the late edition of the Better Than Reading podcast.
After hours.
You better buckle your seatbelts.
Holy smokes. I went to plug in my headphones and mic in the front panel, and the whole front panel just broke right inside the computer. I'm so mad. This is such a cheap computer.
I spent the last 30 minutes trying to unravel my headphones. I guess I really just spun them up real good. It was like a maze. I was like untangling them, and then I made it worse, and then I almost broke them in half, but I decided to stick it out and unraveled them after much effort.
Were they? Did you just ball them up from last week? Just get these
I have a little section for the podcasting equipment, which consists solely of the headphones. So that's why I was late getting on tonight. I've pretty much been doing that for the last hour, trying to get them unraveled.
Come on.
Sticky situation.
Oh my goodness.
After hours.
After hours. So what do you want to talk about? I have a lot of things I want to talk about. I don't know if we're going to get to them all.
Well, go ahead and kick it off.
Well, welcome everybody to Better Than Reading. We're back in your face, in your ear holes. This is the After Hours special, apparently.
After hours.
It's late. It's a whopping 9 o'clock at night. We are recording. It's so late. I'm sleepwalking, and Mike is sleepwalking too. So we got a lot to talk about on the docket. One thing I wanted to talk about, and I don't know if this happens to you. Maybe I'm a little bit crazy. But I want to talk about the random thoughts that pop into my head from time to time that just don't make sense, and I think I need a little bit of therapy, Mike. I think
keep it clean.
I need you. No, of course not.
After hours.
Well, it's the After Hours show. But I needed you to maybe reassure me that I'm not totally crazy. Okay, so
that might be a bad measuring stick for that, but go ahead.
Well, let's find out. So I was at the grocery store the other day, and I only needed one thing. I was just gonna go in and go out. And I looked at the aisle. I think it was coffee. And I go down to the coffee aisle, and right in the front, as I walk in, there's this little old lady picking her stuff, and she's standing right in the middle of the aisle. And then she's got her cart blocking the rest of the aisle, and there was only a small space for me to get through.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I was able to fit through. I just kind of, like an amazing parkour athlete, I kind of just slipped right through.
I'm sure if I had that on video, that wouldn't have looked cool at all. You probably just did a very uncoordinated hop over the ladies.
I tiptoed, got on my tiptoes. But as I was walking, I had a momentum going because I just tried to get my stuff and leave as fast as I could. And as I swooped past her, the thought occurred to me: what if I just barreled right through this woman, out of the way, lady, and just knock her over, kick her cart out of the way. Yeah,
dentures fell out.
Yeah, there's cereal and
she
things
hits her
everywhere.
panic button.
Little, I fall and I can't get up thing. It was just a momentary thought. Of course, folks, I didn't knock over the lady. But as I walked, I just started laughing because it made me laugh so much. What if I really did that?
Yeah, that's a pretty regular occurrence. I would say most people are like that. They may not be as animated as you and I in their thoughts.
Yeah.
But I'd say that's about normal. I pretty much live my whole life with what ifs and crazy people in Walmart. And you bring up a good point because when I go to the grocery store, I seem to never leave with what I went in for. So I'm all right, I'm going to go in, I'm going to get bread, whatever. I leave with like bread, a bag of muffins, toothpicks, Listerine, and like
A lamp.
a shaver or some kind of
Yeah.
like a toothbrush. Just completely ran. I go in there intending to spend like maybe $10, and I end up spending $55 on just
Always.
crap.
Yeah.
And if I go hungry, like if I go there when I'm hungry, I get like a rotisserie chicken, friggin' bag of chips. I mean,
Those chickens smell good. Like, how can you resist?
One Direction poster. I mean, it's just
Oh, wow.
anything can happen.
You don't have the whole set yet? You're still collecting the posters?
I'm missing the guy that recently left. What's his name? Zan?
Zamboni. That was his name.
Yeah.
He was really into hockey. But yeah, I mean, they always do that. They always have like the strategic products, like right when you
They
walk
get
in.
me every time.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, of course I could use a 6-pack of Yoo-Hoo.
Yeah, you
I
suddenly.
love Yoo-Hoo. I had a buddy in college. When we were in the dorms, we were really close. I mean, we hung out all the time, and
Yeah.
even every now and again we kind of reach out to each other. But we had this thing where we'd go out, and he would be driving because he had a vehicle, and he would pretend to just pass out like at stoplights. So it'd be like perfectly normal. Then he'd put his head on he just passed out on the steering wheel, and he'd keep the horn going like that, and everybody would be looking around and just stupid stuff like that. We you do the honk and you wave like you know the person, and then they feel guilty
They're
because they feel like they
confused.
should know you too.
I don't know that guy.
I was driving with the family today, and you ever see something out of the corner of your eye and you think it's completely something opposite of what you actually saw?
Sure.
I mean, that happens pretty often, right?
All the time.
So
I never
all
know
the
what I'm
time.
looking at.
So
Where am I? What is this?
So I'm driving down the road, and I look, like I just kind of out of the corner of my eye, I see what looks to be like a robot. I'm like, what the frick is going on? Why would somebody have a passenger as a robot? And then I'm thinking, like how the Daft Punk guys look,
Yeah.
like all kind of weird thing. I look again, and I'm like, this guy is wearing a freaking motorcycle helmet as the passenger
Oh my
in a car.
God.
Like I wasn't out of my mind. Like he actually looked like a robot.
For
He had a
some
bunch
reason.
of tattoos, and he was giving me like the peace sign and all kinds of
What?
stuff. And
He's
the
giving
thought
you
that came out of
eyes?
my head was like, I'm about to die. Like he's gonna pull out a shotgun and just shoot all of us. And
Yeah.
that's a really morbid thought, but that's what I was thinking. I was like, dear God. So you know how you go up to a stoplight and you kind of have to be right up alongside that car. Like maybe you just like had some road rage or whatever, and you try and avoid them.
Mhm.
So I'm at the stoplight, and I stay like, it's almost as if there's an imaginary car between me and this other car, because I stay like 20 feet back of this other car, so I just have to come like face to face with him again, because he keeps on like looking at me in his motorcycle helmet. I can't see his eyes. I'm like, I think he's just gonna shoot me, and I'm just scared to death.
What I love is how you see a motorcycle helmet and you immediately go to robot.
Well, like,
oh, it's a guy in a motorcycle helmet. But, there's a robot in that car. Oh, the future. My question is, if he's in a car, why does he need the helmet?
well, that's the whole point of it. Like, he's
Very
obviously a
weird.
dum-dum, right? I mean, he's a vehicle. He's a passenger in a vehicle, and he's got a whole bunch of tattoos. I'm not saying he's white trash or anything like that, but I mean, he's literally wearing a helmet inside the car. My wife saw it. Everybody, so I wasn't hallucinating.
Sure.
And I really thought that he was just nutso. So I kept my
Crazy.
distance, and luckily nothing happened. So.
Well, that's that rule, right? That you don't make eye contact, because like if you make eye contact with a strange person, like that's almost like an unspoken rule. Like you're inviting them to bother you. Well, I want to talk about one little thing. We like to talk a lot about our TV shows and what we love, but there's always those nights where there's like nothing to watch.
Yeah.
Like everything's reruns, and so I usually resort to going through Netflix. And Netflix is great, but sometimes it's hard to find something new that you like because they're very, selective about what they recommend. And if you've been watching a certain kind of show, that's all they recommend. Like I said, I watched that Foyle's War, which was like a British detective show. So now all that Netflix is giving me
Sherlock and Matlock and all that good stuff.
and they're all
Columbo.
British. I had no idea there was so many British detective shows about old ladies and gardens. Like I can't. It's like, get out of here. I want to watch something different.
Yeah, well, I mean, British and detective, that pretty much goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I guess they all want to be Sherlock. But I rolled the dice and I wanted to watch an anime. I'm not a big anime fan. There was a few that I like, But this one looked cool, and I started watching it. And this is why I have a hard time, and I think a lot of people have a hard time with anime or just stuff from other cultures we don't fully get. Because I watched the beginning of it, and it opened. It was really cool. You know, it was like cool castles, and there's these knights marching through a city, and there's soldiers. I'm like, oh cool, it's gonna be this cool action, fighting and in like fantasy, like Lord of the Rings. And then it opens up, there's an announcer saying like, back in the ancient times there were great heroes fighting against the evil monsters. So all this epic stuff for the first 5 minutes. Then they cut to a scene, and a giant pink cartoon pig waddles into view, and it's talking. It's like, hi everybody, I'm a big giant pink pig. And I'm like, what is the need for them to add?
It's that weird stuff that you see late at night on Netflix.
Yeah, well, at any time. But it's like, okay, cool action, fighting and warriors, and then they have to put in the most bizarre attempt at comedy that it completely ruined like my excitement. Because do they think that like every show has to appeal to everybody? Like, for the grown-ups they like the action, but the little kids, they want a giant talking pig. So let's make sure we got both of them in this show. And that's probably the danger of really digging on Netflix, especially late at night when nothing's on. You open yourself up to, God knows what. You really got to dig to find stuff on Netflix. And, I've seen, like, the stuff my kids watch, like these low-budget, like, family shows. I don't blame you. Well, it's hard, but, that just took me for a loop. I just did not know what.
The only person that's watched it is probably you and, like, 5 other people.
Well, that's the weird thing, because they're such devoted fans of anime, and I'm sure maybe one of them will be listening, and they're like, no, that's an awesome show. You just don't get it. You need the giant pig because it symbolizes our struggle. And I just like, no thanks. No thanks.
Yeah. Well, you said you had mentioned earlier in the week that you saw Deadpool, right?
Yeah, I did.
How was that?
It was good. Definitely a movie for grown-ups, not for the kids. The reason why I liked it was because of like the whole fourth wall breaking, because he spends a lot of the time in the movie just talking to the audience, like while he's interacting with people in the movie, and he even is talking about the movie as a movie, so it gets really weird and really silly, and I like that. But it's interesting because people have different standards for what they'll want to watch, and I think we've talked about this before, how we can filter out certain things like language in a show that if we want to watch, if it's a show that we care about for other reasons.
And I think we've talked about this, especially back, I don't know if you want to call it last season or the last time, last year when we did this podcast.
Yeah.
But we talked a lot about that, and I think you got to take things in context, and everybody has their own convictions or things that they feel or shouldn't be in their home or they shouldn't be watching. I think everybody needs to find that out for themselves. One thing I'm realizing, especially as I go along just life in general, there's a lot of kind of things that are put on you at an early age that kind of form the way you think you should live.
Right.
And I think that everybody lives differently, and they could be living just as healthy, having just as much fun, and they could have a good head on their shoulders, but they might not see any harm in Deadpool.
Yeah.
Somebody else may. And I think that that's really what we have to figure out, is what, as a family and as us personally, what is it that we are okay with and that we feel good with, and we can't live by somebody else's standards.
But I think we all can agree, don't listen to One Direction. I think that's a good rule to live by.
I love One Direction.
Yeah.
Nah, I don't. I'm just kidding.
I don't know. But unless it's your guilty pleasure, even though I don't believe in guilty pleasures.
Say that again? Guilty pleasures? Oh man. Hey, so what's your overall review of Deadpool? Outside of what you just talked about, what you feel was good about it? What are some of the things maybe you think you might improve on?
I like it. I think it's really hard to separate my understanding of this history of it, because long before the movie came out, they were fighting. Ryan Reynolds, who plays the star, was fighting to get this movie done for 7 years, and they didn't want to do it. They didn't think X-Men movies were profitable anymore. I don't know how they thought that. But they fought to get this thing done. they had a tiny budget compared to most superhero movies, and while they were making it, they lost $7 million from the budget. The fact that they came out with such a good movie, like in terms of the special effects, great action, lots of fun humor, cool characters. I knew the backstory, and I was kind of rooting for it just because they believed in it, they worked really hard in it, and even with a very tiny like ad budget, they were able to spread the word. And now it's insane how much money it's made. It's breaking records all over the place, and not that I care too much about the money on all that, but it's cool just to see that he believed in this. You know, they put it on the line, they worked really hard, and they produced a quality movie. So I think that's
they've had a very unique advertising campaign for it too.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's one of those things that really grab people, and the way they've kind of marketed Deadpool, I think they've really kind of taken this superhero movie that's not for kids and really kind of leveraged that and put a lot of marketing around that. And as you can see, people are kind of going to see it in droves.
Yeah.
So definitely good stuff there. Welcome to the podcast.
After hours. Have you noticed all the fish sandwich commercials going on right now?
Not at all. No, I haven't.
Maybe it's just local to me.
Must be watching like Nickelodeon or something.
Well, I noticed, this is just my obsession with fast food, but like every few months they all start advertising similar deals. Like at some point,
my obsession with fast food.
Well, no, I just noticed it, but like at some point during the summer, all of them were doing bacon, like the Baconator and the Bacon Deluxe and the Big Bacon, and it was
the Big Bacon.
It was like,
is that really a sandwich?
We got the biggest bacon. I mean, Arby's, Wendy's, McDonald's, they all had like their own bacon thing. And I thought, is it like bacon season? I mean, bacon doesn't grow on trees, or they killed too many
it from South America.
They killed too many pigs, and now it's all fish. And McDonald's has this really fancy commercial with like a pirate ship motif, like, "Arr, the treasures of the sea, we bring them up for you and deep fry them." And I'm just thinking, who goes to McDonald's to eat a fish sandwich? Have you ever had their sandwiches? Their fish sandwich?
I mean, I have had their fish. I have had their fish sandwiches before.
You have?
Yeah, everybody's had at least one McDonald's fish sandwich.
I don't know if I've had a fish sandwich.
You're not missing anything. Clearly, it's not fish.
Yeah. Well, there might be some fish in it.
Yeah, like very little. Yeah. Just enough to call it a fish sandwich.
Yeah, just to get the taste. That
part of the gill. That's it.
Yeah, just to get all the scales and throw it in that bucket. We give that to McDonald's.
Yeah.
The good fish goes to Long John Silver's.
Yeah, no, I don't think it goes there.
No.
I think they're using the same fish as McDonald's.
They get those stuff McDonald's throws away. They sneak in at night and gather it up.
Oh, excuse me?
Gather it up.
That's too much BBC for you.
I say, yeah. I like my fish nice and smelly.
Hey, so definitely something I want to go over on the music front today.
Okay, good.
So I actually talked to you about this earlier in the week, but I just kind of made a find that actually surprised me, and surprisingly enough, was on my Facebook news feed. So we talk about how much we hate Facebook, and it advertises things we don't like. Well, Facebook actually advertised this album. So cool. It's Lacey, I think it's Lacey Strum is how you say it. She's the former lead singer of Flyleaf.
Yes.
Thank you for agreeing with me. Tell me more.
Okay. You're on the right track.
She left Flyleaf because she was having a baby, and she had recently gotten married. A few months before that, and she basically talks about how she kind of had this epiphany that she didn't want her kid to grow up on the road touring, and she didn't want to necessarily regret not being able to spend that time. So she left the band. New singer joined Flyleaf, which I don't like nearly half as much. Right. Pretty much stopped listening to them. But she came out with a solo album that's actually her husband who plays guitar, and then I want to say somebody from Evanescence, but I could be way off. But there's somebody else in there from a well-known band, and she wrote most of the stuff, but she basically has her own not self-titled, but her own solo album, rock album that sounds a lot like Flyleaf, but with that signature voice that only Lacey has. kind of real dynamic, almost dark, but it's very positive lyrics.
Hmm.
Album's name is Life Screams, and I would highly recommend that anybody that's into rock or into Flyleaf, if you like that kind of her unique tone, you like, Flyleaf had kind of like that specific drum beat, guitar riffs, things like that. It's very much like that, so definitely check it out.
Yeah, I remember you told me, I think you had called me up like it was such a big news, and I immediately dropped everything. I was holding a baby, I dropped it.
Yes, making a sandwich, dropped it right on the floor.
And I pulled up Spotify and listened to the album, and it is good. It is really good.
Really good.
It's like back to, everything we loved about Flyleaf.
It's what Flyleaf should be.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, you know what I'm saying about her voice? Like,
Yeah.
it's just so, it's almost, like, I don't want to say scary or haunting, but she just has this tone to
Yeah.
her voice that's very specific, but, her music is also very positive, and the messages are awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it's funny because I think either last episode or maybe the one before that we talked about kind of the state of music. I think this is a good album in the right direction, and I hear it's very popular, like on the top rock songs, things like that.
Oh, definitely.
So, really good stuff.
Yeah, I love her. Yeah, she's got that. I was typing in Billboard, and I put Bill Bjord because I wasn't paying attention. But her voice, her voice isn't typical rock like vocals. And most female artists who do rock have an advantage because they're not all trying to sound like Eddie Vedder. Because all guys try to sound like him.
Creed.
Yeah.
Arms wide open.
Yeah. Hold it there, hold spoken.
Nickelback.
Yeah, they all have that kind of
Look
weird.
at this photograph.
God, are they still around? I don't think so.
I hope not.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely recommend that album. She's really good. Like you said, awesome, positive lyrics. Very personal and vulnerable, but at the same time, really
good. That's a good way to describe it. Very personal and vulnerable. I like that. It's very like she's at the. I have no idea what word.
Well, it reminds me
of she's kind of bearing her soul right in front of you on the album. She's almost like she's afraid, and then she's happy, and it's kind of you get all of it in one.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so great about her and artists like we mentioned before, 21 Pilots. They're not afraid to be honest. When pop music, it's all stereotypical, like vapid, empty lyrics. These guys, they bare their souls, and they're not afraid to talk about the stuff they're struggling with, but at the same time offer hope and encouragement against awesome music. So they're definitely worth checking out and listening to.
Yeah.
I looked at I'm looking at Billboard, and they have like the genres, and they actually have K-pop as a main genre in their menu. I can't believe it.
Who?
K-pop, the Korean pop music. It's Korean pop music. Like on the Billboard site, there's pop, hip hop, country, dance, Latin rock, and K-pop. I had no idea that it's that popular with the American audience.
Freaking Koreans taking over the world.
Oh my god! At first it was what's his name with Gangnam Style. Now they're all.
Oh, CKY or no? That's another band. What's his? What's that guy's name?
Cologne. It's like PASY.
That's Cologne.
Yes, Calvin Klein. CKY. The new fragrance from Cologne. But yeah, PSY. I don't know how to say that.
Oh, okay.
Psy. Yeah, the biggest video on YouTube.
After Hours.
After Psy. And there's one interesting thing that I wanted to talk about. I don't know how relevant it is to us and our experiences, but it kind of grabbed my eye.
Grabbed your eye.
After Hours. It is about tattoos in the workplace. It's an infographic talking about our culture and how accepting we are of tattoos, and it's typical, statistics. And I read it thinking, well, I don't have tattoos, but whatever. I'm not judging it. But what was so weird is that the infographic became like propaganda for tattoos, and how it's so wrong if an employer like discriminates against someone with a tattoo, and they shouldn't. But there was one thing that jumped out at me. They have the infographic, and it says 0 states have laws protecting people with tattoos from discrimination in company hiring practices. And I'm like, really? Have we gotten to that point that we have to have laws to protect people with tattoos? I mean, come on. I mean, I could understand passing laws to protect against real discrimination against people because of their race. But tattoos? I mean, you chose to get a tattoo. If you can't get a job as a manager at an office, then that's life. I mean,
Yeah.
and then they go on and they talk about, like, even worse, 96,000 tattoo removals were performed in 2014. Like, that's somehow a terrible crime that the people have given up on their tattoos.
Well, listen. Not everybody wants to hire the guy that has like a demon on his forearm that says 666. He's like, "Whoops, made a mistake." You know, it's kind of like
that was one crazy weekend. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, man. They said what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I guess not.
But not on my face.
Yeah, you're freaking Antarctica tattooed on your face. Of course, you're not going to get a job. I mean, listen, you got to be strategic, right? I mean, if you're gonna now, I find, especially like with these newer companies like Google, Apple, where they're a lot more trendy in their dress, so even when they work in their office and things like that, I think tattoos are more acceptable for higher ranking positions. But overall, you got to be smart. You got to realize that if you ever needed to get a job where maybe that was frowned upon, that you could cover it.
Yeah, and I mean, tattoos can be considered a part of someone's life, or they make it a statement. Some people, it's like a big part of their life, and I understand that. Do what you want. I don't want a tattoo because I'm too picky. I'll get it and immediately regret and think, no, I should have gotten the lightsaber, not the Lord of the Ring or something idiotic. But at the same time, in a workplace and just in life, tattoos are a very distinct way of expressing yourself, and you can't expect people to instantly understand. It's like we were talking about, like with people with movies and language. Everyone has their own acceptance level, and most people won't hate someone because of a tattoo, but of course it says something about you and about your life. And I mean, my goodness, should we really waste time passing laws to protect people with tattoos? I mean,
No.
that just shocked me that there is a group out here actually saying that in this graphic on a whole website, trying to announce that that's the next big fight in our government. People are dying, people are starving, we got all these issues. But no, let's take time to protect the people who got a tramp stamp when they were on spring break, because now they can't get that lifeguard job.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, folks.
Let's protect the guy that got Mario shooting a fireball at Bowser
On his tush, yeah.
Anyway, and I hear you, but listen, that's just the way life is. You make that choice, the conscious decision, and you're willing to, live with it in the good and the bad. I think, you realize when you get a tattoo, especially when you get like sleeves and things like that, that you're not going to be able to hide it. And you got to just live with that and, make sure you're in an industry where that's acceptable.
Yeah, like truck driver or pig farmer.
Truck driver, child abductor.
Well, that's a growing business, but unfortunately.
I'm kidding. It's just a joke.
Yeah. Just a joke, folks.
Just watch Dateline. Bazinga. Well, that's all I got.
Believe it or not, we have an email for you to reach out to us, betterthanreading@gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter, rate us on iTunes, let us know what you think, and we'll see you next time.
All right.
After hours.
After hours.
Stuff it.